Oh, hello. The answer to this question is really a matter of collecting evidence. It's an empirical question. It's not something that can be answered purely by a priori theory, that is, a theory before we look at the facts of the world. Nonetheless, we can make some reasonable inferences about whether much advertising is a prisoner's dilemma game. If we first think of markets in which there's perfect information, in that case, consumers know everything about the products, the prices, what's available, so on. In that case, informational advertising would be completely pointless. There is no gain to be made on the part of firms by engaging in informational advertising in that case. But there might be some advantage in persuasive advertising. That is, attempting to change consumers' preferences about the products that are available. You might come up with an advertising campaign which changes people's minds about whether they want or need the product that you're offering for sale. So, presumably, we're talking about cases, at least, cases where that would be the true, or cases where there is imperfect information and firms can gain advantage by informational advertising. That is, making themselves known to customers, what they're producing, what prices they're offering, and so on. In these kinds of cases, where informational advertising or persuasive advertising would make a difference, then it's conceivable that we would start to see prisoner's dilemma games emerging between different firms. So if you take, say, the example of, Coles and Woolworths, let's say, or it can be, you can think of lots of firms or lots of markets where these two conditions are satisfied. So the car industry, white goods industry, furniture, groceries, so on and so forth, mobile phones and so on. All sorts of products. But let's go with, say, or it can even be just it can be just kebab shops. Let's go with the kebab shops. So in that case, let's say we've got a number of kebab shops in the street. None of them are advertising initially, and they all have roughly equal market share. They all have roughly the same number of customers. They're all roughly the same size. One of them thinks to itself, if I engage in informational or persuasive advertising, then I can grab a greater market share. I can steal customers from some of my rivals. In which case, if my rivals do not engage in informational or persuasive advertising, then I should. I'll steal customers off them. On the other hand, what if my rivals do engage in advertising of some kind? Then what should I do? Not advertise? I'll lose customers. So I'll be forced to advertise too. So you can see here that a given kebab store has a dominant strategy. If no one advertises, then I should advertise. If everyone advertises, then I should advertise. Now that's just for one kebab shop. All of the other kebab shop owners are thinking exactly the same thing. They all have the same dominant strategy. So they will all choose to engage in advertising. Now, what if all of them engage in advertising? None of them were previously. They all had an equal market share. They all engage in advertising. It's all basically going to be the same kind of advertising. Okay, no one's going to be putting up some kind of luxurious postmodern television or Facebook advertisement in which extolling the magical virtues of their particular kebabs. It's going to be things like, kebabs, $6, blah, blah, blah. Best kebabs in the street. They're all going to say that. All right, so in that case, where they're all doing that, what happens to their market share? Their market share effectively stays the same. Okay, this kebab shop might steal customers from that kebab shop, but that kebab shop steals some customers from the other one. In the end, they all have roughly the same market share. They're all selling the same products at the same prices. The only difference now is they all have large advertising bills. There's advertising expenditure now for no change in their market share. It would have been preferable if the kebab shops had been able to cooperate and come to an agreement to not engage in this advertising. They would all keep the same market share. They would all make the same revenue, but without the expensive advertising expenditure. Okay? But they don't do that because there's always an incentive to engage in the advertising. It's a dominant strategy. And that's why we get, in this case, a prisoner's dilemma. Acting as self-interested individual agents, they rationally choose to engage in advertising, which results in lower profits for them than if they had operated collectively. Individually, it's irrational, but operated collectively, they would all be making larger profits. Now, you can imagine the same kind of logic would apply in the case of supermarkets, in the case of car retailers, and so on and so forth.